All right, so we're diving into this case about Simon Goodman
Okay.
and his quest to be, officially declared a beautiful person.
Right.
We've got all these legal documents.
Yeah.
His application,
Mm-hmm.
the commissioner's decision,
Okay.
even some background on that Beautiful People Act of 2007.
Interesting.
It seems like Simon's main problem here
Yeah.
is that he thinks the commissioner rejected him just because he's got red hair. He's saying it's an irrelevant consideration.
I see.
So let's see if his argument actually holds up.
Yeah, this is a fascinating case. I mean,
Yeah.
it really gets to the heart of administrative law.
Right.
How much power these government officials have,
Mhm.
and when can their decisions be challenged?
Yes, exactly.
A big question.
So let's start with the basics.
Okay.
We've got Simon,
Mm-hmm.
a 20-year-old with very bright red hair,
Bright red.
applies to be, registered as a beautiful person.
Right under the act.
Right under this act.
Yeah.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Right?
Right.
The act itself
Mm.
is actually surprisingly vague.
Oh, really?
It sets up this system
Right.
for recognizing beautiful people,
Uh-huh.
gives them certain privileges,
I see.
but it never actually says what makes someone beautiful.
So, right away,
Yeah.
there's some ambiguity.
A lot of ambiguity.
That's not good.
Never good in law.
No, not in the legal world.
Nope.
So what happened
Well,
when Simon's application landed on the commissioner's desk?
it got rejected.
Rejected just like that.
Yeah. And the reasons are
Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
The commissioner cites a directive
Mm-hmm.
from the prime minister.
Wait, the prime minister?
Yeah. Saying that redheads
Right.
are presumptively not beautiful.
Hold on.
Yeah.
The prime minister gets to decide who's beautiful.
Apparently.
That seems a little
Look, out of bounds.
a bounce. Yeah.
It raises questions
Yeah.
about whether the commissioner was just doing what the prime minister wanted. Uh-huh.
Rather than making an independent judgment
Right.
based on the act.
Okay, so we've got the prime minister's opinion.
Not so subtle opinion.
Yeah, not very subtle.
No.
Okay, so what else is going on?
This is where it gets messy.
Okay.
The commissioner's research assistant, Elaine, is Simon's ex-girlfriend.
Oh, no.
And this is not good.
Let's just say they didn't have an amicable breakup.
Oh, boy. Talk about a conflict of interest.
Exactly.
Wow.
Simon could argue
Yeah.
that Elaine being involved
Uh-huh.
biased the decision.
Against him.
Right.
Especially
Especially
if he could show
Yeah.
that she was influencing the commissioner.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got the red hair,
Red hair,
the prime minister,
prime ministerial directive.
a potentially vengeful ex-girlfriend.
Mm.
Is there anything else?
One more thing.
Okay.
Simon's character reference
Okay.
from the Bishop of Bayswater. Apparently it wasn't glowing,
Oh.
saying that Simon lacked kindness.
Interesting.
Now, the act does say
Mm-hmm.
that the commissioner may consider
Okay.
any other matters
Right.
that he or she considers relevant.
But
So
could the commissioner say
potentially
that kindness
Yeah.
is part of beauty?
that's exactly what they might do.
Really?
Yeah, it'll be up to the court
I see.
to decide if that's reasonable
Uh-huh.
and if the bishop's opinion should have been given that much weight,
Right.
especially
Right.
with all these other factors involved.
Yeah. Okay, so Simon's obviously not happy.
Not happy at all.
He wants to challenge this decision.
Mm-hmm.
What can he do?
He could apply for a judicial review.
Okay. A judicial review?
Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
he'd be asking the court
Yeah.
to look at whether the commissioner's decision was lawful.
Lawful.
Yeah.
Not necessarily correct.
Exactly.
Right.
Judicial review isn't about
Right.
the court saying, we think you're beautiful. We don't think you're beautiful.
Okay.
It's about
Yeah.
making sure the commissioner followed the law
I see.
and the procedures.
What would Simon need to prove
Right.
to win this judicial review?
He would need to show
Yeah.
that the commissioner's decision was flawed somehow.
Mm.
And this is where that argument about irrelevant considerations comes
Mhm.
in.
Okay.
He's basically saying, look,
Yeah.
my red hair has nothing to do with
Mm.
whether I'm a beautiful person under the act.
Right.
The commissioner considered something they shouldn't have.
Okay.
And that makes the decision unlawful.
Okay. So that's his argument.
Right.
But could the commissioner just say,
They could try.
well, in my interpretation of the act, red hair does matter?
That's where it gets interesting.
Oh, boy.
The act doesn't define beautiful person.
Oh.
So it's open to interpretation.
Oh, wow.
This is where statutory interpretation comes in. The court would have to look at the act, its purpose, the wording,
Yeah,
maybe even its legislative history,
I see.
to figure out what Parliament meant
By,
by beautiful person.
oh, wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
a battle of interpretations.
That's right.
Simon says red hair, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Commissioner says it does.
Maybe it does.
What kind of arguments could they make?
Well, Simon
Yeah.
could say that focusing on looks, like
Yeah.
hair color,
Yeah.
goes against the whole point of the act, which seems to be about inner beauty.
Inner quality.
Right.
Like kindness.
He could use that character reference
You could.
from the bishop
Exactly.
to say, look, kindness matters,
Yeah,
but my red hair's the problem.
right.
Okay.
The commissioner, on the other hand,
Yep.
might point to the fact that the act doesn't list any specific criteria.
Right.
So they have a lot of leeway
So they could say,
they could do.
the act doesn't say, I can't consider red hair. So it's fair game.
Right.
Wow.
They might also try to downplay
Okay.
the prime minister's directive, saying it was just guidance, not an order,
So trying to distance themselves
trying to distance themselves.
from that political pressure.
Yeah,
This is getting complicated.
it is.
So we've got this prime ministerial directive, a possibly biased ex-girlfriend,
Lurking.
and now we're debating the meaning of beauty itself.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It is.
So we've got Simon saying the commissioner focused on an irrelevant factor, his red hair,
Right.
and then the commissioner
Yeah.
could say that they have the power to define beauty.
It really comes down to how the
Uh-huh.
court interprets
Right.
the act.
The Beautiful People Act. What
Right.
are the things they're going to look at?
Well, one important thing is
Okay.
the standard of review.
The standard of review.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
How closely the court's going to look at the commissioner's decision. So are they going to give the commissioner, like,
You're right.
the benefit of the doubt,
It depends.
or are they going to, like, really scrutinize it?
Right.
Okay.
Different standards of review. And it can make a big difference
Okay.
in this case.
Yeah.
They might use something called Wednesbury unreasonableness.
Wednesbury unreasonableness.
It's a mouthful.
What does that even mean?
Basically,
Okay.
the court asks,
Uh-huh.
was this decision so unreasonable that no reasonable person could have made it?
So, like, Simon can't just be like,
Right.
I don't like the decision,
I disagree.
so it's unreasonable.
Right. He has to show
Yeah.
that the commissioner's reasoning was
Okay.
just totally out there.
Completely irrational.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not just that he disagrees with it.
So that's a high bar.
Yeah, that sounds hard to prove.
It is.
Especially if the commissioner's just like, well, the act's vague.
I was just using my judgment.
That's what I thought beauty was. It's going to be tough
Yeah.
for Simon.
Okay.
He might try to argue, though,
Okay.
that the prime minister's directive
Yeah.
and Elaine
Yeah.
show that the commissioner wasn't really
Yeah.
looking at his beauty,
Uh-huh.
but was actually influenced by
By other things.
irrelevant stuff
Right.
or bias.
So he's saying,
Try to poke holes.
right, in their
Oh,
reasoning.
Saying it wasn't really that reasonable.
Right.
Okay, so what happens if Simon wins?
That's a good question.
Is the court going to be like,
Right.
you have to declare him a beautiful person?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
They have a few options.
Okay.
One is to issue a writ of mandamus.
A writ of mandamus.
Yeah,
Another legal term.
I know.
Okay, what's that?
Basically, it's an order
Okay.
from the court
Mhm.
telling a government official
Okay.
to do their job properly.
Okay.
So in this case,
Yeah.
they'd be telling the commissioner
Right.
to look at Simon's application again.
Mhm. Without considering his red hair.
So they're not saying
Right.
he's definitely going to win,
Yeah.
but they're giving him a fair shot.
Right, a fair chance.
Okay.
The court could also issue a declaration.
Okay. A declaration?
Yeah, it's like a statement
Okay.
clarifying the law.
Okay.
So they could declare that considering red hair
I see.
is irrelevant.
Under the act.
Right, when
Right.
deciding who's a beautiful person.
So that would set a precedent
It would.
for future cases.
Absolutely.
So anyone with red hair could say,
Right.
see, hair color is irrelevant.
You can't use that.
Okay. But that wouldn't necessarily help Simon.
Not directly. No, but it could have
Yeah.
broader implications for
Okay.
how the act is interpreted
Interesting. Okay.
and applied.
We haven't talked much about SLRP,
Right.
Simon's redheaded advocacy group.
Yeah, they've been pretty vocal.
Yeah. Could they get involved?
Well, that's tricky
Yeah.
with public interest groups. They need to show they have standing.
Standing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meaning they have a real interest.
So it's not enough that they care. They have
Yeah.
to be, like, directly affected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
SBLRP could argue
Yeah.
that this case affects all redheads.
Right.
It's about discrimination
Right.
and unequal treatment.
So they're saying
Here's the thing.
this isn't just about Simon.
This is about all of us.
We're all being judged unfairly.
Right.
Okay.
They might point to other cases
Uh-huh.
where groups have challenged discrimination
Right.
and say that this decision, if it stands,
Yeah.
could hurt redheads everywhere.
Right.
And stop them from getting the benefits
Yeah.
of being a beautiful person.
So it's like a systemic issue,
Exactly.
not just a personal thing.
It's bigger than Simon.
Yeah, but would that be enough?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Courts don't like to get involved in politics.
Or like social issues?
Right.
Right.
SBLRP would have to make a really strong legal argument
Okay.
about how the commissioner violated the act
Huh?
and hurt redheads' rights.
So it's not enough that they're offended.
Right. They need to show
Yeah.
that redheads are actually disadvantaged
Okay.
by this decision.
Okay, concrete harm.
Right. Tangible harm.
Okay.
They could point to that case with the ACF,
Okay.
the environmental group,
Right.
and the tourist resort.
Right.
They were worried about environmental damage,
Right.
not personal harm.
Yeah.
But the court said they had standing
Right.
because they'd been fighting for
Right.
the environment for years. They were experts.
Okay.
So SBLRP could say, we've been fighting for redhead rights.
We know what we're talking about.
This decision is bad news for redheads.
Okay, so they need to be credible.
They need to show
Yeah.
that they're committed to
Right.
these issues.
Okay.
And if they do that, they might just get to join the fight.
Wow. So this case could be about more than just Simon.
Right. It could be about
Yeah.
how the act affects a whole group
Right, a whole group of people.
and how the courts
Yeah.
balance individual rights
Right.
with the interests of organizations.
This simple question
Right.
about red hair and beauty
Yeah.
could have a huge impact
It could.
on administrative law
Absolutely.
and discrimination.
And the role of these advocacy groups.
Wow, it's amazing.
It is.
It's wild how this whole thing with Simon started with just red hair.
I know, right?
And now we're talking about like the courts
Yeah.
and discrimination and all this stuff.
It all comes back to
That act,
the Beautiful People Act.
so vague.
Yeah. It's
Like he set up this system
right.
and didn't give any instructions.
No guidance whatsoever.
It's really interesting
Yeah.
because this case could force the courts
Oh, okay.
to decide
Yeah.
like how much ambiguity is too much.
Wow, interesting. You know how much wiggle room
Right.
should Parliament give to officials?
Yeah. When they're writing laws.
When they're making laws, yeah.
It's like they need to find a balance.
It is a balance.
Right.
Exactly.
On the one hand, laws should be flexible,
Yeah, you need some flexibility.
right? So they can adapt to different situations.
Yeah.
But if they're too vague,
Too vague, then
then it's not fair.
it can lead to bad outcomes.
Yeah. Inconsistent or unfair.
Exactly.
And it seems like that's what's happening here
That's what we're seeing.
with this case.
The Beautiful People Act
Right.
gives the commissioner so much power.
Right. To decide who's beautiful,
It doesn't say how.
how to do it,
Mm.
which
Want to see
obviously
these problems.
creates a lot of problems.
Bias, political influence,
Right. Even personal stuff.
like we saw with Elaine.
Yeah, exactly.
This case could really push the limits
Of what?
of statutory interpretation.
Right.
The court might have to dig
Yeah.
really deep
Yeah.
into the act. Look at the purpose.
The legislative history.
Yeah, what was going on when they
Oh,
wrote it?
And like societal values.
Right, like what does beauty even mean?
Yeah, that's a tough question for the court
It is a big question.
to answer.
They might look at
Yeah.
whether the act focuses on physical stuff
Right.
or inner beauty
Right.
or both.
And how they decide that
Right.
could affect Simon's case.
Absolutely.
Under their cases,
Future cases, too.
under the act.
Right.
It always comes back to that
The
question.
core question.
Did the commissioner consider
Yeah.
something they weren't supposed to?
Something irrelevant.
And if the court says yes,
Then it raises questions
yeah.
about all their decisions.
So this could be a precedent,
it could.
not just for beauty,
Right.
but for like all these officials
For how much power they have.
with these vague laws.
Exactly.
It's a good reminder
It is.
that Parliament needs to
Right, clear.
write clear laws.
If they want to. Recognize certain qualities.
Yeah.
They got to define them.
And protect against abuse.
Right, you need safeguards.
Right.
This whole deep dive has been fascinating.
It really has.
We started with red hair,
Right.
and ended up talking
For
about,
the legal system.
yeah, huge questions.
It shows how these simple legal things,
Seemingly simple
yeah,
can have such big implications.
it really does affect everyone.
It does. It affects society.
And it reminds us
Yeah.
that anyone can challenge these decisions.
You can fight back.
If something seems unfair,
Get legal help.
use your voice.
The law can be a tool for change.
It can be a powerful tool.
Cases like Simon's remind us
Yeah.
that we all have a part to play
And making things more just.
in making a better world.
So, to you, dear listener,
Yes.
don't be afraid to question things.
Ask questions.
Seek help if you need it,
Legal help.
and speak up.
Use your voice.
If you see injustice,
You can make a difference.